Hey, this is Heath, and I wanted to talk about the presence of good and evil within humanity within the context of Dungeons & Dragons, and this was a point that came up while I was working on my videos on the timeline of orcishness, but I thought it should be pulled out and made into its own video here. So let's look at what D&D has to say about humanity's relationship with good and evil, because it's not something I had picked up on before, and maybe it's a bit strange. Let's talk about it. Okay, I think this is something that warrants additional commentary, because it's not something that I ever thought about or realized was in Dungeons & Dragons, specifically here, the 3rd edition of Dungeons & Dragons, until I was taking this deeper dive into orcs and orcishness. And it is this line about half-orcs that says, like their human parents, they favor good and evil in equal proportions. Now, there is the important caveat that we're talking about good and evil in the context of Dungeons & Dragons, which, as people rightly point out in the comments, is potentially very different from good and evil as it exists in our real world, because good and evil, you have good and evil gods, and good and evil have actually mechanical effects in the game, like certain spells or magic items may function differently depending on whether the character that's holding them or using it upon is something that is good or evil. So these are objective categories that exist in the world. And this video series itself is not intended to be an overall expose on good and evil, either in our world or fantasy worlds, or specifically Dungeons & Dragons in general. We're talking about orcs and orcishness and the orcish relationship between evil through time, but what the relationship here with the orcs is with good and evil, I think is very interesting within the context of Dungeons & Dragons when it says that, like their human parents, they favor good and evil in equal proportions. Because I hadn't realized that humans, at least within the context of 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons, were supposed to be good and evil in equal proportions. Now, I wonder if that is something that they are specifically saying is true about the worlds, and I will say that plural, the worlds of Dungeons & Dragons, that humans are good and evil in equal proportions, or are they trying to make some type of broader comment about that's the way they think good and evil works in our world? Because I would certainly not say, even if you were trying to apply some type of understanding, Dungeons & Dragons-like understanding of good and evil, that, if you have 5 people over to your house for a gaming group, so you got 6 people at your house at your table, that you're expecting half of them to be evil? I don't think that 50% of the people that I run into here in the world, and thinking about the world in general, I don't think half of them are evil. Even using my understanding of evil in the real world, or even if I were to take a more Dungeons & Dragons application of evil, I don't think looking across, everyone that I've encountered in my life, I don't think, well, half of them are evil. And yet, that's what's stated here. I happen to have, this is the 3.5 edition of the Player's Handbook, so I turned back to what it has to say about humans and alignment. And it just has 2 sentences here, and the first, here they are. Humans tend toward no particular alignment, not even neutrality. The best and worst are found among them. And I think that's interesting because the second sentence doesn't necessarily follow from the first. You could have both independently. Humans tend toward no particular alignment, not even neutrality. It does not explicitly state here in this passage about human alignment that all alignments are found in equal proportion among humanity. Although that might be what they're trying to imply, especially since they're talking about good and evil being found among humans in equal proportions. Maybe that means that all of the alignments are present in humanity in equal proportions, because it says they don't trend toward any one in particular. So maybe we are supposed to take that as saying that all alignments within the context of Dungeons & Dragons are found in equal proportions across all of humanity. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're all geographically equally distributed. If you have, a good city of humans over here, you're expecting there to be an evil city of humans someplace else, of equal size that, counterbalances that out. That's kind of strange to me. Because, like I said, I wouldn't have said that, humans are, you find equal number of evil people that you find good people. The second sentence here is that the best and worst are found among them. Because even if you had, humanity trending in a certain direction, saying that, well, people are generally good or something, you could still say that, well, the best and worst are still found among them, because you can find all of the alignments, and you can find really good people, and you can find really bad people, but people in general trend toward X. But I guess it's a particular philosophy, I suppose, of humanity, saying that all of the alignment and good and evil are found in equal proportions, which does include the best and worst. So I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I think it is interesting because I think that's such a kind of strange sentence here that we're expected to understand the orc and half-orc relationship with evil in the context of our own understanding of ourselves as humans, because that's what we are, but in an understanding of humans that we favor good and evil in equal proportions. I mean, that's a very interesting statement to me. I don't think I would have made it if I were doing game design. I looked this up in the 5th edition handbook as well, just for the sake of completeness for discussion, and this is what it says about half-orcs in 5th edition. It says half-orcs inherit a tendency toward chaos from their orc parents, and are not strongly inclined toward good. Half-orcs raised among orcs and willing to live out their lives around them are usually evil. So this does drop the reference to humans being good and evil in equal proportions, and it does drift half-orcs to inheriting this tendency to chaos from their orc parents, and not necessarily evil, though those who live among orcs may be. But very interestingly, I went back to what it says about humans and alignment, and interestingly, that same phrase from 3rd edition is there. Humans tend toward no particular alignment. The best and worst are found among them. So that's been directly retained by 5th edition. Very interesting, I think. What do you think about all this? Let me know down in the comments. I love reading them. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. It'll be greatly appreciated. And also, please check out The Cultists, the web series on this channel about modern-day D&D playing Lovecraftian cultists who just want to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who just don't understand. Season 1 is on the channel now. But also, please check out my YouTube channel. I have over 200 videos on tabletop gaming and the sci-fi and fantasy genres. If you enjoyed this video, you'll likely enjoy many of them as well.